Is David Johnson worth waiting around for in the late games this Sunday? How concerned should you be about Alvin Kamara's Week 6 health? And is Malcolm Brown an automatic start in the wake of Todd Gurley's expected absence? Plus, the second-place team owner in the 2019 FFPC main event, Micah Bailey, is here to talk about the Cleveland Browns offense and the surprising way he got and managed his only FFPC team this year nearly to the top. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
With the master rhymer, that's the lead behind the video rapper. You know the truck primer, tapper.
Hey, thanks so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations, everybody. All of the Balkaholics, all of the Gerzak addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com. I am your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. To let listeners behind the curtain a little bit, Dave was actually working with the rehab group the last couple of days. However, despite the questionable tag, he is powering through a game-time decision and through a hip replacement, doing the show tonight.
That's right, Balky. Unlike these wimps in football, I'm actually able to come out and perform here.
In all seriousness, how is the hip? Is it healing good?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, it was Wednesday early afternoon, and so it's been over 48 hours. I'm up walking around, feeling pretty good. I'm a little nauseous, was today, but I'm not taking...
I have that effect on people.
I'm not taking the Oxy or Percocet, right? So I'm taking mostly Tylenol and a little bit of another painkiller, but not too bad.
Yeah, that was we had actually an email. Jesse from Albuquerque wanted to know what painkillers you were currently prescribed to.
Yeah, I got oxycodone. It's tramadol.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and save as much of that as I can so I can sell it on the street. So.
Yeah, and so it's just basically been a little bit of that and a lot of Tylenol.
Yeah, Tylenol and
good for you.
And other stuff. Yeah. So it's going well. It went about as well as it could have gone, I think.
So what's the rehab like for this? Like, when are you walking again? What did they tell you that you need to be doing for range of motion and everything?
I do exercises like 3 times a day. I can walk with crutches, but I can actually walk with one crutch or without actually. But you know, they say just let the biologic stuff work for 6 weeks before you really go over like 10,000 steps, you know, like big step days.
Oh, okay.
So because he said, you know, you're not going to get any better by going with more steps. So
all right,
just take it a little bit easy.
Well, I'm thrilled to be doing the show tonight with you, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're powering through this.
Mentally, I'm here.
We have a great show tonight, quite frankly. We got a lot of good stuff coming up. Can Hunter Henry be a difference maker for you with his potential return to the lineup this week? Whether Matt Breida can be trusted against the Rams. And Micah Bailey, the Week 6 main event second-place team owner, drops in to talk about managing a juggernaut of a team and much, much more. Shout out to the chat room right now. We got a busy little beehive going on in there, pun intended, for anybody who's in the chat room tonight. Post any questions you might have in there, fellas. You want to connect with us on Twitter? Do that as well. At HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak, Facebook.com/HSFF Hour. You want to give us a buzz tonight? It's 347-426-3682, 347-GAME-OVER. HighStakesFantasyFootball@gmail.com is the email address that our producer and mutual friend Rob, as well as our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce, is monitoring. We'll do our best to get to all of the questions, tweets, and emails coming up in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. In case you missed it, rotoviz.com/podcast had the latest RotoViz high stakes lowdown this past Thursday morning. Billy Metcalf at Fantasy Inquirer on Twitter got into that. He's actually got 2 teams in the Football Guys Players Championship top 60. And this is a guy who has won. We were trying to count it up on the show, how many leagues he's won over the years. We think it's pretty close to double digits. But he had a lot of good stuff to say, a lot of good stuff on that. You can check that out at rotoviz.com/podcast. Also on Apple Podcasts as well as the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Thanks to Football Guys, Roto World, and Rob for tonight's rundown. Let's get into do I want to get into the rundown? We had some questions in the chat room. Okay, so John Terry, let's go to questions right away. John Terry, he wants to know our thoughts this week on Chase Edmonds and Malcolm Brown. And the reason he brings this up, and we'll actually meld the rundown together here. The NFL Network's Mike Garafolo reports that David Johnson is likely to play Sunday. He returned to practice today. He said he felt good, but Cliff Kingsbury is actually calling him a game-time decision. Sounds like David Johnson wants to be out there, but he not only is at risk for missing the game, but he's also at risk, if he is active, for playing reduced snaps in the game. Last week, Chase Edmonds had 11 touches. That was a season high for him, and David Johnson was only out there for 70% of the snaps. Now, the tricky thing with this, Dave, is if you look at this Arizona game coming up this week, they play at home against Atlanta, potential shootout game. I think the total on that is, well, I think it's like 51.5, 52, something like that, but you're not going to know. So I think it's an easy call between Edmonds and Johnson. If Johnson is active and you own both of them, you play Johnson. If Johnson is inactive, you play Edmonds. But what do you do if you only own one or the other, given that it's a late game?
Oh, man, you look for the early Sunday morning reports, but I really think that I'd be tentative to play David Johnson, unless I didn't have other good options. I guess I would just be a little bit tentative to play him. Back injuries seem like they can flare up, but I mean, if he is an elite back, so I guess if you don't have other good options, like it's Tevin Coleman or better, I would say at that point you have to play Johnson and roll with it.
I'm just trying to think of, obviously the waiver deadline has already passed in the FFPC for this week. But if you have a guy here's other guys, here's potential guys that are, if David Johnson is out and you don't have Edmonds, you can maybe fall back on Royce Freeman. You could fall back on Dion Lewis. You could.
Dion Lewis is.
Well, I'm telling you, you're grasping at straws here. I mean, outside of that, there's really nothing else. Jamal Williams, maybe on Monday Night Football.
No. See, you play David Johnson and suck it up if you.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Getting into the Malcolm Brown discussion. Now, this I think is a little bit more concrete. Todd Gurley is actually doubtful for the Rams game against the 49ers, according to Lindsey Theory on Twitter. Gurley is expected absence. Sounds like that's going to make Malcolm Brown the featured back for the Rams offense. I did read reports earlier this week. In fact, Sean McVay talked about the running back depth, and he did mention Darrell Henderson a couple of times, so he could actually be involved in this offense this week as well. However, he's only played 2 offensive snaps all season long. Now, Malcolm Brown, Dave, if Gurley is out, this Rams and 49ers game is scheduled for, is this a 1 o'clock game? No, probably a late one. Yeah, it's a late one. So you fire, actually, again, same situation. You fire up Malcolm Brown if Gurley's out. If Gurley's active, you play him. Is he worth waiting around for, or are you giving him the same David Johnson treatment you just treated us to?
Well, doubtful he's out. Gurley's not going to play. You have to start Malcolm Brown, but it's a tough matchup. San Francisco, they have a good defense. They're ranked 5th against the run, 2nd against the pass. And I don't think Malcolm Brown's all that great of a talent, so I'd be concerned about starting Malcolm Brown. I'd probably try and look at someone else. If I had another decent option, like in one league I started James White and benched Gurley in advance of that, kind of thinking that would happen.
Ah, smart thinking by the Dizzle there.
What do you get, 13 points, which is right around his projection. So I'm like, that's fine. What I mean? You get the 13, you're good.
Yeah, and I honestly, I think I probably would have done the same thing. However, you know what? Maybe I wouldn't, because as of yesterday, Gurley was still, quote-unquote, questionable. He didn't receive the official doubtful tag till today.
Yeah.
So you had to be a little bit forward-thinking on that in order to do that.
It wasn't trending well, and that usually is the way it goes.
Right. Now, if you would have had Gurley versus Sony Michel, what would you have done? Probably still played Gurley, right?
No, I would have started Michel.
You would have gone Michel.
I'm
okay.
not a huge Michel guy.
Darrell Henderson, are you playing him?
No, I wouldn't even play him in a desperation, because he's got 0 fantasy points this year. He's the running back version of Isabella, unfortunately, the guy that I still love, and eventually he will bust out after Kingsbury gets shot.
Well,
so.
I hope.
Kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I mean,
you going Hinckley on us here on the HSFF hour tonight?
I think Henderson might actually be all right. I think he might look decent, But without any points whatsoever, you're really grasping at straws.
Yeah, I would not play him at all. I actually did last week. He was dropped in a few leagues, and I picked him up for a couple of bucks in like 2 or 3 leagues.
Totally smart. And this week, too. Great.
Yeah, well, he was going higher this week, I think,
right.
Given Gurley's injury status. Kind of a weird thing with this quad. I don't think this is related to the knee injury at all, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Another big one, Dave. Alvin Kamara, questionable for the Saints game against the Jaguars, according to Luke Johnson on Twitter. 20-plus touches for every single game for Alvin Kamara this season, except for one. Only Austin Eckler, who's got 39 catches, Christian McCaffrey with 31, Le'Veon Bell with 27, have more than Kamara's on the season through the first 5 weeks. Latavius Murray, obviously you'd fire him up in this. Well, maybe not obviously. I'll talk to you about this in a second. But he would sort of be the guy that you would insert in this lineup. And, the thing is, even if he does have reduced snaps in this game, how much they have leaned on Kamara in the Teddy Bridgewater games this season, I think you sort of have to play him. Now, the advantage you have with this, Dave, this is a 1 o'clock start, so you will know right away. But I don't know, man. Kamara was not on the injury report on Wednesday. He was added on Thursday, wasn't spotted at practice Friday. This, to me, screams that he is going to be out on Sunday.
But he's one of those playmaker players, so he might play. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys that is so good that
he's a gamer.
Yeah, where the coach might be like, "Look, Alvin, we know you're awesome. Just take Friday off because what do you need to practice for?"
Right.
So I mean, I think that there's a chance of that happening. So I would have, if they announce that he's playing, I would definitely start him on Sunday. And if he doesn't, you have Murray. I think that's a great start. Jaguars, from what I'm seeing according to FPC rankings, they're 22nd against the run. So they have this so-called great defense, but they're not that great against the run. So Murray could have a huge game. Not
a big pass catcher. I don't know if they incorporate anybody else in that role, but Michael Thomas, I was talking with my co-host, Leo Kiper Jr., and he has been snake-bit in this league. Basically, everything he's done in this league, he's been crushed in this year. He drafted Barkley over McCaffrey. That came back to bite him. He traded Barkley thinking he was going to be out for 2 months. Now it sounds like Barkley's on his way back. He just made a big trade for Kamara. Now Kamara's hurt. So, literally, I'll just tell everybody what Leo's been doing in his leagues, because whatever he does, stay away from those guys.
No kidding.
But I told him to pick up Latavius Murray, so he actually does have him. So it'll be interesting to see what the Saints do there. I'm keeping Murray in my back pocket. I might fire him up as a flex. Even I only own Kamara in like 1, maybe 2 leagues. But I mean, Murray to me would be a clear-cut top 25 running back if Kamara's out.
Yeah, and John Terry thinks Kamara's going to play. He said tweaked ankle could be precautionary. And I could see that too. Again, you're talking about one of your playmakers.
We have Micah Bailey just around the corner here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the second-place team in the FFPC main event. One more point I want to get to before we get to Micah is Hunter Henry. He's listed as questionable for the Chargers game against Pittsburgh on Sunday night, according to the Chargers' official Twitter account. It sounds like he's probably going to suit up. He practiced in full today. Dave, the Chargers...
I didn't know that. This is such good news.
Yeah, the Chargers are getting nothing from Virgil Green and Lance Kendricks, trying to shoulder the load while Henry has been out. You weren't starting either one of them. They only have combined 10 targets on the season. Anthony Lynn did say that whenever Hunter Henry returns, he would be limited at least in his first game. I don't think he's available in any FFPC leagues. I think a lot of people held on to him. Are you playing him Sunday night in a game he's questionable, though, Dave?
Well, in a dynasty league, I just benched Jordan Akins for Henry just now.
That's probably worth the risk there.
Yeah. So but there's how tight ends are. It's like they're great, and then the rest of them suck. So
right.
There's really not there's not a big divide. There's like the really good ones, and then there's the all this crap. So if you're starting a crappy guy, I would roll Henry out there and give it a shot.
Who was the cat for Pittsburgh that they just traded for from Seattle?
Nick Vannett.
Yeah, so that's who they're playing. I would imagine that Vannett was probably available in leagues this week. Graham and Hawkinson weren't available, the 2 tight ends on Monday night. So, I mean, maybe you could start Hunter Henry, and if he's inactive, you play Vannett. I don't know how desperate your tight end situation is, but that would certainly be one way to roll. I don't know if Vance McDonald plays this week. Dave, Vance McDonald got dropped in a couple of my leagues.
Did you really?
I was surprised, yeah. So interesting stuff there. Be paying attention. Dave, this is something that he always says on the show, even if it's a late game, even if it's the Sunday night game, if you read between the lines, you check out the updates from the various outlets, whether it be Football Guys, Draft Sharks, or what have you, oftentimes you can glean a little bit of knowledge, and you can find out which way these teams are leaning as it goes to, before the 1 o'clock games start. You can kind of know whether these guys are going to be active or not. All right, let's get to tonight's guest. I want to bring him in right now. This is actually his first year playing high-stakes fantasy football. He's been playing fantasy football overall since 2007. He's in 8 leagues, 2 of which he's in with his wife, and he enters Week 6 sitting in second place overall in the 2,400-team 2019 FFPC main event. Please welcome into the program Mr. Micah Bailey. Micah, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. It's a huge honor to be here. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
You are coming through just fine, and I got to tell you, you are probably second place in the main event. I'm guessing your wife is beating you in the other 2 leagues you're in with her, right?
You know she is. You know she is. I can't seem to beat her in anything. So that's probably considered a good thing for most things, not beating my wife. But, yeah, especially in fantasy, I'd love to one of these years.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I listen, I know how it goes. Happy wife, happy life. That's what they always say. We want to get into fantasy football here shortly. Micah, can you tell the listeners when you are not sitting in second place on your way to potentially a $500,000 grand prize, what you're doing for a living?
Well, yeah, sure. I'm an inside sales manager at a builder supply store here in Oklahoma City. Basically just means I manage a few people who write tickets and take care of home builders for a living. So that's what I spend my days doing.
We have a question from the chat already for you, Micah. Our Ivy League professor at Cornell, Hudson Kern-Reeve, is very intrigued by your wife and wants to know if she has a single sister that perhaps also plays fantasy football that would be looking for somebody who also enjoys competing against.
Well, she actually does have a sister who is single.
All right.
She lives in Houston. So, I mean, I could hook that up.
All right, perfect. Kern lives in New York, so we might have to work on this.
Upstate.
Well, I mean, it's still upstate or whatever.
It's not the city.
Well, yeah, he lives in New York State. Yes, yeah. So we'll see what we can work on with that. Dave, go ahead.
All right, so let's talk fantasy. One of the things that high stakes owners were trying to figure out this drafting season was the running backs on the Eagles. You put your chips on veteran Jordan Howard in this draft, and a lot of other people were looking at Miles Sanders to emerge. Do you think he can hold off Miles Sanders as a lead back for the rest of 2019? It kind of looks like it's leaning that direction.
I think he can. Just as a personal side note here, I don't know that I love starting out with the Eagles question as a Cowboys fan, but I do have to go with the Eagles when I can in fantasy. But he's the experienced runner. He has the kind of the early down role right now, and even if Sanders does carve out more of a role, I think Howard's still going to see plenty of work. And Corey Clement going on IR today doesn't hurt anything for sure. I think it kind of keeps it narrowed down to those two guys. So, like it or not, for me, the Eagles are a really good offense and a fantasy-friendly offense. So, I think he can hold them off and keep bringing value.
Hey, Michael, let me ask you, now that I know that you're a Cowboys fan, I think you took Amari Cooper in this main event league. I think it was the 3rd round. How much did your fandom play into that, or were you just on board with Cooper having a big-time fantasy year?
It's hard to differentiate the two probably completely, but I think I believe in him. I believed in him when he played with the Raiders. He's a really good wide receiver, and just seeing how he and Dak played last year, I thought he would have a good year, and that's certainly been the case so far. We'll see. I think probably if he wasn't wearing a star on his helmet, I may have waited till the 4th round. Who knows?
Talking with Micah Bailey, the second-place team in the FFPC main event. Micah, Carlos Hyde entered this week 15th in the NFL in rushing yards. High-stakes players, for whatever reason, they let him slip in drafts. You snared him in this main event draft right here. What did drafters miss by letting Carlos Hyde drop down draft boards as far as they did?
Well, Duke Johnson certainly was kind of the hot name during draft season, so I think that kind of drove a little bit of Hyde's value. And I do consider myself pretty lucky. I was able to pick him up in the 13th round. So that's a good amount of value, I think, for what he's brought so far. And I think while Duke could be maybe the more dynamic player, I don't think he's really built to handle the load kind of like Hyde does. So Hyde is going to continue to keep that early down roll, and he has the touchdown upside. I think that's the thing that's really driven him so far.
Dave, do you have Carlos Hyde anywhere this year? Did you pick him up off waivers, get him late in drafts at all?
I don't really think I do. No.
I have him in one dynasty league where I couldn't trade him, and it's unfair.
Nice.
Well, no, I'll tell you why it's not nice. Is before the season started, I had Melvin Gordon was like my only running back, and Carlos Hyde was my 2. Oh no, that's what it was. Carlos Hyde was my 2.
That's very dire.
And so I it's one of these Kentucky dynasty leagues, and so I'm in Kentucky, and Taylor Casey and Travis Cox, they own this. Like, dude, you need a running back, man. You need a running back. Yeah, you got a running back. And I'm like, yeah. And they're sending me these horrible trade offers. And then they sent me one. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I traded Cooper Kupp.
Whoops.
But I mean, I'm super deep at receiver, although Cooper Kupp would obviously be starting for me every single week. I traded Cooper Kupp for Mark Ingram in like a second rounder.
Oh, yeah.
So it worked out.
Sort of.
But then Melvin Gordon came back, and Carlos Hyde's been great. So I really didn't need his running back as bad as I thought I did.
You probably didn't think Kupp would be like the number 4 receiver or whatever it is.
Absolutely. I did not. Speaking of white receivers, let's keep it on that conversation.
Yeah. Hunter Renfrow, here's a white receiver we're going to talk about. You picked him up off waivers in the main event. He's that skinny little slot guy. Doesn't even look like an athlete, but man, he can make some big catches. They released J.J. Nelson. Do you think we're about to see the rise of Renfrow over the next couple of months?
I mean, I don't know if we're going to see the prolific rise necessarily, but I sure hope so. It would be great for me. Of course, the league does love a slot guy, so there's nothing wrong with that. He was definitely dynamic at Clemson. We all saw that when he was in college. So I think his role could continue to increase, and certainly, at least for me, I think the Raiders' offense is better than I expected it to be, with AB leading in that incredible fashion. So who knows? It could be something good. And to be honest, if it's not, I got him for $1, so I won't be too mad about it if he has to spend the season on my bench.
Bulky, there's been some talk about Foster Moreau, that other rookie tight end for Oakland, and that he's been playing well. He had a good game, and I actually saw a number of dynasty owners picking up Moreau this week.
He is, well, obviously the tight end owned there is the great Waller the great Waller of Oakland. But you look at that Oakland situation, and maybe Renfrow is the type of guy who could end up being a difference maker down the stretch. But Tyrell Williams has been dinged up. Antonio Brown has been he's gone. They traded for Zay Jones, which John Terry's pointing out in the chat right now. We don't know what the situation is there. But for whatever reason, Derek Carr's been pretty successful throwing to the tight end this year. Maybe that's just the strength. Maybe that's the thing that they try to ride this year. I don't know. But I think you couple that with a tight end premium format and a waiver wire that has been picked pretty clean by a lot of these drafters. I think Foster Moreau, that's the reason why you're seeing all these people Foster Moreau onto their rosters.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was terrible. Moving on here. Now, Micah, this is not only is this your only FFPC team this year, it's your first ever FFPC team, and you got it through a 4for4.com promo, which is
really,
this is a crazy story. Can you tell us a little bit about use the promo for a main event team, and then tell us a little bit about how you prepped, never doing a draft before in the FFPC, how you prepped for draft day?
Yeah, I'm sure all the guys in the chat are really happy to hear that I'm doing this for free. So sorry, everybody.
That's great. It's great.
We have people who have spend $100,000 on their teams, so yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I really am sorry. I don't know what's happening here, but
hey, it's all good, buddy. We love it.
It's really it was crazy. I've been a subscriber to 4for4 for a few years, and they had a sweepstakes, and honestly, I thought I might win a signed jersey. And was pretty happy with that, but here we are, So, when I won it, I obviously went straight to the FFPC site, and actually, this is going to sound like pandering, but it's the truth. I listened to this podcast and listened to some of the guests that were on, and kind of learned a little bit about a few of the ins and outs of the league itself, and of course tried. try to get a feel for it anyway. But
Sure.
Yeah, I found you guys through this, and so I actually am a listener. I've never been active in the chats. Maybe I'll have to try that.
But you're probably one of the only people that read the rules this past year. You actually went through the rules.
Well, I don't know how much. I don't know how much it helped me. I'll tell one on myself. I actually was using 444's draft software, and for whatever reason, it showed a 16-round draft. And so first time through, I'm thinking I'm in the 15th round. It's time to get a defense. The guy before me grabbed a defense. So I actually ended up grabbing a defense in the 15th. So I probably should have never told anyone that. No, actually, I got the second defense, and I got Baltimore.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'll tell that on myself anyway. But generally, I've paid a lot more attention since I've started playing fantasy to the draft itself, the NFL draft. So usually that's when my prep starts. I'll start listening to podcasts like this and some 444 podcasts, an ESPN podcast, things like that. Just as I'm mowing the lawn, doing things like that, get a feel for how teams are going to look. I've actually created a pretty significant spreadsheet with each team and try to get a feel for how each team's going to lay out in their roles, and then just mock. That's the name of the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Micah, what was sort of your approach to the tight end premium format? Couple that with the dual flex. Were you putting an extra emphasis on tight ends? Because I think there's more than two schools of thought, but there's a lot of people. It's a polarizing issue. There's a lot of people out on FFPC Twitter that say people overvalue the tight ends in this format way too much, and then there's the opposite end where they say people don't put enough emphasis on drafting tight ends at an appropriate spot to maximize your fantasy output every week. How did you feel about that aspect of it when you were prepping for this draft?
That was really a tricky one for me, never playing in that type of format before. What I actually ended up doing just through the flow of the draft is I punted a little bit, ended up with Austin Hooper in the 8th round, which has clearly worked out a little bit. He's done pretty well so far this year. But I really was tempted to try to go early, but just the way the draft fell to me, I wasn't really ready for Kittle in the 2nd round, and so I punted a little bit and waited till the 8th round to come back and get Austin Hooper and kind of play it from there.
Yeah, Hooper, man, wow, he has been fantastic. He and Darren Waller are like the two just killer tight ends this year that you got for cheap.
I said this on my local fantasy show, Dave. If you were drafting today, where would Hooper be in the top 3 for tight ends for you?
I don't think so, but I mean, I think it's still early enough in the season. I think you have to respect Kittle, Ertz, and Kelsey, and Waller actually. But Waller's actually been.
Waller's up there as well.
The volume is so high, but I mean, I think you're looking at a 3rd, 4th round pick.
What about Evan Engram? Who would you rather have the rest of the way, Engram or Hooper?
That's a good question.
I think that's the line for me.
I think Hooper because the offense is much better too. I mean,
yeah.
Daniel Jones is still a rookie quarterback and still dicey.
Micah, if you were drafting today, is Austin Hooper a top five tight end for the remainder of 2019 for you?
That's probably about where I would put him. I was going to say top 5. I wouldn't say top 3 for sure, but I would give him top 5. Evan Engram, maybe Hunter Henry if he comes back healthy and can play the rest of the season out. I think he may enter that conversation, but he's right there in that neighborhood.
All right, so we talked about tight ends that did better than expected. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns, where they have David Njoku, who's done terribly, and most of the rest of their offense has done poorly, except for Nick Chubb. So do you think that Mayfield actually gets the offense turned around and headed the right direction, or do you think this is kind of maybe a lost season for the Browns?
Oh, living in Oklahoma, I hear plenty about Baker Mayfield. I feel like I know him and he's my next door neighbor or something because everybody talks about him so much. Fun fact for you, actually, Browns games now in Oklahoma are shown every Sunday. There was a letter writing campaign or something that happened that they exclusively play Browns games like it's a local deal. But I think Baker, when he has a chip on his shoulder, maybe a little something to prove, he plays better. And so we may be seeing time to turn around for him a little bit. He certainly has the weapons to get it done and the physical tools. He's a good player. It's just the last few games, at least for sure, he's looked lost. And so I think maybe now he has to prove it again, and so we may see him turn it around.
I really want Beckham to turn it around so I can get rid of him in Dynasty.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
my little acquisition of 2 Beckhams. It's been horrible. I want to get rid of them.
Let me tell you why I'm terrible at Dynasty.
It's like dating a bad person, bad girl.
Right.
I got to get rid of her.
Let me tell you why I'm terrible at Dynasty. So you and I are in this Gridiron Legends League, Dynasty League, right?
Yep.
And I joined this league prior to the 2018 season in a dispersal draft, and I think I took Kelsey. No, I can't remember. It was like, I think my first pick was Leonard Fournette.
Right.
Okay? And immediately I was like, I need to flip this guy. I don't like him. I don't want him on my team. And I said, all I need is for Leonard Fournette to have like a couple of good games or a good game, and then I'll trade him for like a first-round pick or something, you know? And now he has back-to-back great games, Dave. So what am I doing? Let's just I'm gonna ride this out a little bit longer, see what happens here. And I know it's not going to end well for him. I know he's going to have a bad stretch. I'm not going to be able to trade him. That's why I'm terrible at Dynasty.
Yes.
Just like even executing my whole goal is right in front of me, and I'm totally ignoring it. It's so ridiculous.
To go along with that, Two-Packer just said that Will Fuller is available.
Well, I know Will Fuller is available. Everybody knows Will Fuller is available.
First-round picks.
I told that story on my local show this week. It killed. Everybody thought it was great.
Oh, yeah. That was funny.
He did a first-round pick for every touchdown he scored this past week.
Two-Packer was offering up Will Fuller for first-round picks every time he scored a touchdown.
Every time he scored a touchdown in that game on Sunday, he tacked on another first-round pick to the price. He did not move him. Shocking. We're talking with Micah Bailey, the second-place team in the FFPC main event going into Week 6. We saw the Patriots-Giants game last night, Micah. What's going on with Sony Michel? I mean, at this point, it almost seems like Bill Belichick is intentionally trying to destroy fantasy owners who invested in Michel or invested anybody in the Patriots backfield. You know, Rex Burkhead.
James White.
Yeah, except for James White. Rex Burkhead was out last night. The Patriots get 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 by Brandon Bolden and then 2 by Tom Brady. So Sony Michel was, I don't want to say he was saved by that 26-yard run late, but he ended up, I think, with like a 13-point game. And going forward, I think I don't know if you just temper expectations with Michel or if the worst part of his year is out of the way. How do you view Sony Michel going forward, Micah?
Well, you know, it's tough when he's in the backfield with a classic running quarterback like Tom Brady. It's always going to take away your touchdown upside. But he's had the attempts. He's at least 15 attempts in all but I think 1 game this year. So the attempts are there. Maybe the touchdowns will start to fall. And, of course, I think Bill Belichick may very well hate fantasy football players. If he hates them as much as he hates hoodie sleeves, then certainly we're all in trouble. So, I mean, we'll see. I think if they keep it up and he keeps getting the attempts that he's having, I don't see any reason he couldn't, be at what we all expected him to be at the beginning of the year.
He actually got more involved in the passing game in Week 5. He had several catches that game, ran a ton of routes. So I was actually pretty bullish on him against, in a game against the Giants on Thursday Night Football where he should have been having a big game, and it just didn't happen. So I don't know. Going forward, Dave, I don't know if you own him anywhere. I think I own him in 1 league, and I went 0 RB in that league, so I've been having to trot him out every week because I don't have a whole lot of other great options. But expectations way lowered for Michel right now.
Yeah, I mean, Michel, the way the Patriots use running backs, I dealt Michel for Calvin Ridley earlier in the season, and I was happy about that deal, still happy. I don't own any Michel at all. I mean, you can't trust Belichick. It's week to week. There's stuff going on. There's always injuries at running back. Michel himself is hurt all the time. So if I own him in Dynasty, I would deal him. Like I said, I've already done it, and I just would not be looking at him if I can avoid him. I mean, why put yourself through the heartache of a Bill Belichick running back unless it's the pure pass-catching third down back?
Sony Michel trade no matter what. Right, Dave?
That's right, Meyer.
Now, you are not a Packers fan, Dave, but I think I do have a Packers question.
I don't hate the Packers.
I know you're going to ask Micah about Devontae Adams.
Yeah, Devontae Adams, and the news came out, actually. I was at my physical therapy rehab today, and I just glanced down at the Appleton Post-Press, and it's like...
Oh, I thought you were going to say you saw Devontae Adams there.
No,
they were working on his toe.
Yeah, but there was like, Adams not sure when he'll be back. I'm like, yikes.
Yeah.
So, He says it looks like he's going to be out for. I actually personally think he might be out to week 10 or 11. I think the Packers have a week 11 bye. My opinion in Balky is that he might even go that long. I think.
I
guess I should ask the question.
Hold on, let me interrupt because you hit on a great point. When this injury happened, and they were talking about maybe he can be ready, with the long
10
week,
days, yeah.
and I was like, this is turf toe, man. Like this, you don't just, it's not a flipping a switch. And I said initially, I'm looking at like a month. Same thing with Darnell Savage, the Packers' first-round safety, had a high ankle sprain. Yeah. They're talking about him playing again this week, and I said,
no.
I said, kind of tongue-in-cheek, I'm like, we'll see in November, but I kind of mean that.
Right.
And I don't know if they're just covering injuries up, but I think, and we'll talk to Mike about this, but I think when he gave that interview with the press on Wednesday, talking about it doesn't feel the way I want it to. He's not even stretching. He's not putting a helmet on at practice.
Yeah, he couldn't put his shoe on.
I think he's a ways away.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, anyway, so now back to the question. Because it only involves Adams being out, we have to look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who was terrible. 4 targets, 1 catch for 18 yards or something like that.
The Packers, Aaron Rodgers only completed 4 passes to receivers last week.
And the Packers play Detroit, which actually have a reasonably decent secondary.
Darius Slay is healthy.
So how do you feel about MVS? This is like a leading question. I feel like I'm a defense attorney here, but go ahead.
Well, I'll go the other way. I feel like he does have upside. He plays on a very good offense with a very good quarterback. If he is in that role, anything can happen. Aaron Rodgers can get the ball in most games to the wide receivers. So I feel like he's a solid flex play, especially through bye weeks, and in those kind of really rough bye weeks coming up, he could be have the upside of maybe a wide receiver too. Now again, I could be completely wrong, and I'll undermine everything I just said, but it's there. The possibility is there. He's a good athlete, and he plays for the Packers, so it's always a possibility.
That's true.
Yeah, totally. And I'm just. Oh, my goodness.
Did you get a tweet, Balky?
I did. Do you remember the cleaner, the disappearer from Breaking Bad, the guy at the vacuum shop? You know who I'm talking about? The guy who sent Walter White to New Hampshire?
Oh, yeah, I do.
The actor that played him, who may or may not have been.
He was in Jackie Brown.
He was in Jackie Brown. He died.
Oh,
Just died, yeah. Robert Forster.
Oh, that sucks. He was great. Well, at least you totally interrupted and ruined the flow of the show for some stupid Robert Forster update.
But
R.I.P., baby.
You're right, R.I.P. So bringing it back to MVS is okay. So Aaron Jones. Now I own Aaron Jones in a couple of leagues. I enjoyed last week. That's probably going to be his best game of the season. I struggle to believe that the Packers can continue this smoke and mirrors offense with Aaron Jones as the foundation for a guy who ended the last 2 years with a knee injury on injured reserve. They're going to have to come up with something else. They can't just throw it to Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones out of the backfield and move the chains that way. Jimmy Graham is no longer the Jimmy Graham that we knew. Robert Tonyan, their backup tight end, he has a hip injury right now, and they're getting nothing from the receivers. Something has to be done there. I don't know if it's, you creatively scheme these guys open. I don't know if somebody else steps up, whether it be Jake Kumaro or Darius Shepard or something. But as far as Packers receiving options, Mike, I think you're spot on there. There is some upside. And if you're going to stretch the field, you stretch it with MVS. And the fact that he can get behind corners, get behind the safety, sometimes 2 big plays can make a week. And that could happen Monday night when the Packers take on the Lions. Let's get to a couple of emails here for you, Mike. First one's from Johnny in Dallas. He writes, "Hi, Micah. Great work in the main so far. What are your thoughts on Kyler Murray the rest of the season?" Thank you. That's Johnny in Dallas. Thank you for the email. Johnny, Kyler Murray, the first overall pick in the draft this year, been putting up some good passing numbers and some decent rushing numbers in Arizona. Is this the type of thing that you think he can keep up for 16 games, Micah?
Well, again, living in Oklahoma, I'm surprised they're not playing Cardinals games. But I guess they can't with all the Browns games going. I think he can. Maybe. We'll see if the Browns keep losing. We'll probably start seeing Cardinals games.
Right.
I think his real game is rushing the ball some. He hasn't really done a ton of that. He's done pretty well, when he's needed to. But I think maybe with a little bit more rushing and as he continues to develop, maybe he could keep this up. I don't think he'll be, a Hall of Famer by the end of the year necessarily, but he could do some damage.
There you go, boss.
Second email we have tonight from our good buddy in Hartford, Connecticut. This is Brian. This is a starter sick question. Hi, Mike. Hey, Micah. Hey, Micah. I am having some flex issues this week. Is it total desperation to start Adrian Peterson against the Dolphins, or is it a smart move to do so? Thank you for the email, Brian. There is a real good possibility that Adrian Peterson has his best game of the season as the Redskins go to Miami as a 3.5-point favorite on the road.
Oh, that'll be a great game.
So what do you think about Adrian Peterson this week? Is he a guy that you would look to for a flex option, Micah?
I would consider starting myself against the Dolphins, so I would definitely give Adrian Peterson a look. I mean, the guy is ageless. He is pretty incredible as just an athlete, and I don't know if I'll watch that game, but I would probably I'd probably put him in if I needed to.
Dave, we have another I Got 5 on it posted in the chat tonight from our good friends Aunt Jemima and Kern Reeve.
Yep.
They want to go over Adrian Peterson. Is it over 13? You guys can.
That was 13 or 13.5. I forgot. Was it 13?
I thought it was 13.
All right, 13 it is.
So, but now here's the thing: you like the over on that for fantasy points.
Yeah, but we beat up on those guys the first bet. They were gracious enough to. So we'll go double or nothing. Is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. So we're gonna go under 13, and they're gonna take over 13. Adrian Peterson total fantasy points in week 6.
Yeah, this is kind of like the color of money where they hustle us with small bets to start, and then eventually then they make it $100.
All right.
Yeah, I got the under.
All right. So I got the under. You got the under. I got 500. You got 500.
All right.
Perfect. All right. Moving on. I think we have one final question for Micah before we let him go tonight. Dave.
Real quick, Kyler Murray is QB7 through the first 5 weeks of his NFL career.
And you know what's funny about that is I feel like there's a certain amount of, if you drafted him, there's a certain amount of disappointment in that, isn't there?
Yeah. Well,
doesn't it seem like it's an empty 7th overall?
It actually, I just looked at this for the first time. The first 6 quarterbacks, this is PPR, are averaging between 28 and 28.84, and the next 4 or 5 are averaging 22 to 24. So it feels like a little bit disappointing. But Murray's had some games where he hasn't even he's thrown 1 touchdown or no touchdowns. Anyway, not to keep going on about Murray, but
right.
For a rookie, I mean, good gracious, that's fantastic.
All right, yeah, I know. Listen, I think you have more shares than Kyler Murray than I do, and I'm thinking about this out loud right now. I don't think I have Kyler Murray anywhere.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I do because, if you remember drafting season, Dave, he was climbing up draft boards, and I was thinking I was the shark picking up guys like Cam Newton and Drew Brees. This is going to be, you suckers keep taking Kyler Murray super early. Let the MVPs fall the good old Balky. Well, I guess you were right, and I was wrong. No surprise there. You by the fantasy public, not me. Or not you specifically,
right,
Dave.
Fine.
One more question for Micah.
All right, Micah, thanks for enduring all of our personal stories and Robert Forster's passing. Can you give us an early round pick that you would consider benching in week 6, as well as a sleeper that should be started as well?
All right, my early round pick has got to be Joe Mixon. He has had kind of a rough year to start, and he gets the Ravens defense. So as you said with the defense attorney, I think I rest my case there. That's all I need to say about Joe Mixon. If I had a better option, I think I'd go with it. And I may be cheating a little bit, but I'm going to go back to draft season sleeper. It's got to be DJ Shark, right?
Shark.
I don't think anybody's sleeping on him now, obviously, but I mean, I for one definitely was sleeping on him during draft season. He's playing the Saints this week. They're giving up plenty of yards. I think they're 5th most in the league right now in yards given up through the air. So it could definitely be a good week. Or for any of you ESPN fans out there, Matthew Berry said could be a shark week. Yeah, sorry. It was a bad joke when he said it, and it's even worse when I tried it.
Actually, yours is better because it's a rip on him.
Well, yeah, and you're coming out and say, like, quite frankly, saying that it's not great. It's funny that, you know, when I was drafting DJ Moore in all these drafts, how I didn't realize I was drafting the second best receiver named DJ in drafts this year, which has been unfortunate. I also saw, I don't know if you guys saw this, the Jaguars are giving away Gardner Minshew mustaches to the first 35,000 fans at the game this week. So you get your own collectible commemorative Gardner Minshew mustache, which is good stuff there. I really like what they got going with Minshew and Shark down there. And hopefully Leonard Fournette can just keep it up for a few more games, and then I'll trade him. I swear I'll trade him after that. Yep. I just need a couple more good games. Yeah. So that's how it is. And it was fun tonight talking with Micah Bailey, the second place team in the FFPC main event heading into Week 6. Dude, what a story. You get in on the 4-for-4 promotion. You jump headfirst into the high-stakes waters with the main event team, and now here you are, one spot away from a $500,000 grand prize halfway through the regular season. So congratulations on your success thus far. Good luck the rest of the way, and most importantly, good luck in taking second place to your wife in the leagues that you guys share. I think you're going to be much better off for it.
Thank you so much. As far as this league goes, we're going to see what happens, but I don't think I'll ever beat my wife. It is what it is.
Dude, thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much.
Micah Bailey, ladies and gentlemen, second place in the FFPC main event.
Oh, he was a wonderful guest.
He was very wonderful. You know, it's pretty rare that we get people, you know, normally I when we're booking guests, I'm telling people about the podcast, like, oh, this sounds cool. I'd like to be on. It's rare that we get somebody like, oh yeah, I actually listened to your show. This is an honor. I'd love to come on.
Well, clearly it's rare because, there's 40 downloads a week.
Right, exactly, and 39 of them are my mother and my wife. Yeah. So that's the way it works sometimes.
Hey, did you say, so Minshew? There was some sort of stat about him in his first 5 weeks that he's the only quarterback to do whatever it was.
Oh yeah,
I or Z or something. Whatever.
Yeah, yeah, I did see
crazy,
that.
Though. Like have over a certain rating or a certain number of yards or.
I thought it was yards and touchdowns, something like that.
Like it was nuts, man. Somebody should look it up.
There was another. He's actually throw first-year quarterbacks out of the equation. I think he is the only quarterback. I'm going to mess this stat up, but he's the only quarterback overall this entire season to achieve a certain number of fantasy points every week. It might have been like 15 plus fantasy points or something. Yeah. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was crazy when you think about all the talented quarterbacks that are out there and how high they went in drafts, and the fact that Patrick Mahomes is one of them too.
Did you get Minshew in any dynasty?
It's crazy. No, and
I didn't either because I have too much Lamar Jackson and Murray already.
That's how I have a ton of Lamar Jackson, and you know my policy on quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I have no inkling to acquire them. I continue to get offers giving me quarterbacks. I continue to turn them down. I have no inclination to trade for a quarterback at all.
All right, moving on.
All right, move on. Let's get into fantasy feedback now.
If you've got a question for Eric, Dave, or tonight's guest, send them a tweet at HSFF Hour on Twitter. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Post it in the chat room during the broadcast. Hashtag your tweet with HSFF or just smack Eric in the head. That's highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com or at HSFF Hour on Twitter.
Living on this voiceover for about 6 years now or whatever, right?
Oh, that wasn't me.
I know, not you. This guy who did it. Been having that for the whole show.
Yeah, well,
the whole run.
Yeah, well, listen, when you got it right, you keep going.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah, he's the man. All right, first email tonight. It's from Pete in Athens, Georgia. Dave. He writes, "I love the game night you guys did last week and hope it becomes part of the regular rotation. To reinforce that, I have a challenge for the Dizzle. Name the top 5 running backs since week 2 with the most targets." Great job, fellas. That's Pete in Athens, Georgia. Now, I have corroborated this. I was a little
since week 2.
Since week 2, the most running back targets. I'm always skeptical when listeners send in stuff like this because I don't know if they're trying to pull a fast one on us. But I did fact check this, and my stats match up with what he has here. So, Dave, among running backs, who has the most targets in the league? Top 5 here since week 2. And I'll give you 3 strikes on this one.
To get all 5?
To get all 5. Look, you're probably not going to, but it'll be a fun little game to play for a few minutes.
Yeah, okay, just give me a few minutes to...
But I'm not going to give you a few minutes to think about that.
All right, so we'll start with McCaffrey.
McCaffrey is number 2 on this list with 29 targets since week 2.
Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler's number 1 with 34, Dave. So you got the top 2 right away.
All right.
I think one of these guys is semi-obvious. The other one is not so obvious, and the other one I was actually pretty surprised. You know what? Just ignore that because that may not help you at all.
No, that's okay. I mean, let's see. I'm gonna go a little bit weird here, but
okay. Let's get weird, baby.
Since week 2,
must be the Tylenol talking.
James White.
James White's not on the list.
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones is not on the list. That's strikes 1 and 2.
Yeah. See, not thinking too clearly here. I thought Aaron Jones had been getting a lot of targets lately, but
he got a ton against Dallas.
Yeah.
But that was I mean, I don't want to say that was about it.
I'm not really, So who are the other top backs? My problem is I don't have a lot of good running backs.
I believe one of these guys was a consensus first-round pick this year. Yeah, definitely, it was a consensus first-round pick.
So Elliott?
It is not Elliott.
All right,
okay, so that is strike 3.
Great.
So number 3, the consensus first-round pick that was with 26, David Johnson.
Yeah, see, I'm honestly not thinking too clearly. I didn't even really think of some of these.
Well, no, Elliott made sense. I don't think that was a bad guess.
Whatever.
James White totally made sense, by the way.
Anyway.
Number 4 is the one that probably I didn't think you would get. Chris Thompson for Washington with 25.
Yeah, that would have been tough.
I just assume he's always hurt. How can you be hurt and getting all these targets, but he's making it happen? And then number 5, and I want to let everybody know in Gridiron Legends, if you're looking for a pass-catching back, Leonard Fournette, 25 targets.
Kamara didn't even make it.
No, Kamara did not make it. 25 targets for Leonard Fournette.
I didn't even guess Kamara.
Well, but you were right not to.
Well, whatever.
So there you go. Fun game. Thank you, Pete.
Sucked.
In Athens, Georgia. All right, moving on. Mike in Zion, Illinois. Should I fade Breida coming off a big week 2 in favor of Damian Williams in a potential shootout? Matt Breida is taking on the Los Angeles Rams. That is in Los Angeles this week, Dave. And then Damian Williams is at home against the Houston Texans. And I want to look up the totals on these games. The Texans one, that is at 55 right now. That Rams game is at 50.5 with the Rams a 3-point favorite. Texans also a dog in that Texans-Chiefs game. Do you have a feeling on Breida versus Damian Williams this week if you can only play one?
I would just go with Damian Williams probably.
Okay.
That game's got to have a ton of points. I mean, right. 50-50 something you said?
55 is what it's at right now.
Yeah, I think I'm going Damian Williams there. I don't trust that San Fran backfield all that much myself. I'm
going to agree. And the other thing, not only do you not trust the backfield, they're talking about Jeff Wilson perhaps being active in that game, Dave. And you remember he is the goal line vulture on that team. And you also have the fact that San Francisco is coming off a short week and they have to go on the road. Granted, it's to Los Angeles, but still one less week or one less day to prepare.
It really is on the road. They're going to take a bus.
Yeah, is that what they would do? They wouldn't fly there. How long is from San Francisco to LA? That's probably like a 3 or 4 hour drive, isn't it?
I think it's 3 hours once you hit LA.
Yeah, exactly.
In traffic.
3 hours once you get there, and then it's another 3 to the hotel.
Yeah.
All right, so that is Mike in Zion, Illinois. Thank you for the email, Mike. Moving on, Dave, to Steve in Erie, Pennsylvania. Hi, Dave and Balky. Given your previous stance on one of these guys, this ought to be fun to answer on the air. Which Titans receiver should I start this week? A.J. Brown or Corey Davis? Love your show. That is Steve in Erie, Pennsylvania. Dave, the Texans, by the way, thank you for the email, Steve. The Texans this week, the Titans this week are taking on the Denver Broncos in Mile High.
Sounds like a 14-10 game.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you the total on that game here shortly. It is at 40.5.
In this day and age, a 40.5 total.
That 40.5 is like the new 31.
Yeah. Oh man.
But
neither.
But, okay.
Can you start?
No,
neither?
he's got to start one of them between Davis and A.J. Brown.
I'm starting Davis. He's a veteran. I mean, A.J. Brown's still a rookie.
But A.J. Brown's looked better though, don't you think?
I don't watch a lot of Titans receivers play a lot, to be honest with you, so I couldn't tell you.
No.
I don't feel like Brown's getting that many targets, but I might be wrong.
No, I would say that on that aspect you're correct. I think A.J. Brown has demonstrated more of an explosive capability this season than Corey Davis, but Corey Davis has been getting more targets, and
flip a coin.
Flip a coin. I'm going to go with Davis as well on this, but if you wanted to go with A.J. Brown, certainly if you wanted to shoot for the stars, that would make more sense. All right, Anthony in San Francisco. Dear Tony and Antonio, I probably reached on Jared Cook in my football guys draft, but I backed him up late with Jason Witten. Now I don't know which one to start this weekend. Help! That is Anthony in San Francisco's email. Thank you, Anthony. The Dallas Cowboys are at the New York Jets this weekend, and the New Orleans Saints are going to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Dave, do you have a feeling there both of these tight ends will be on the road? Cook or Witten for you this week?
I'll go with Cook, I guess. Not really super excited about it, but Bridgewater, I think we'll throw it to him a bit. So I guess I would go Cook. But Witten is old, man. So
well, but okay, he is. But don't you think that the numbers he's put up this year? I just think he knows how to get open. Like he's got that. I don't think he was all of a sudden awakened to film study by spending a year in the Monday Night Football booth. But I feel like when you get to a certain age, you kind of understand your body limitations and know how to cover for that. I'll tell you a perfect example. Last night in my local basketball league, we were playing a team. Now I'm going to be 40 years old next month, and the guys I was guarding last night were 24, 25 maybe, and with more talent than me. But because I've been playing in these leagues for so long, I kind of know what I can get away with from a defensive standpoint. I know what the refs are going to call. I know, how to position my body when I'm covering these guys. And now on a much grander scale, I think that's true of Witten. Like he knows what these defenders are going to do. He knows what these coordinators are going to throw at him, and he knows how to attack it the best he can. So I think there is something to be said for Witten. Yes, he's old, he's not athletic, but athleticism was never a big part of his game.
Well, okay, so I just took a look real quick while you were talking. That was nice of you to talk so I could look this up.
Oh, you're welcome.
He's had 4 targets in every game. 4.
Really?
Yeah.
That I didn't realize.
Week 1 he had 4. Week 1, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Cook's not much better. He had 3, 7, 2, 6, and 6. He went 4 for 4. He wanted a touchdown last week with Bridgewater. I just think Cook has a little more upside than the 4-target Witten. So.
All right, I'm going to go with Cook as well. You've sold me.
That's cool.
Even though it's against actually the Jets defense isn't that bad. Yeah. All right, so I'll go with Cook. All right, final email tonight. This is Mac in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. He writes, no Jacobs, Allen Robinson, Marlon Mack, or Hilton for me this week, so I am in a world of hurt. Do I flex out Deebo Samuel or Ronald effing Jones? Thanks for all you do. That's Mac in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We already talked about Deebo Samuel. We didn't talk about Samuel, but his Niners are at the Rams this week, and then Ronald Jones is at home against the Carolina Panthers. Dave, this is not a situation I don't think anybody wants to be in, but if you're trying to...
At home in London or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. That game's in London.
And it is early.
And it is, yeah. It starts at 9:30 Eastern. Make sure you get up early and set those lineups, or set them Saturday night before you get up. I'm going to roll with Deebo Samuel here just for the potential ceiling. Peyton Barber's actually looked okay. Ronald Jones has looked all right. Jones has looked better than I thought, but I'm still going to roll with the upside. And it just seems like they're trying to scheme Deebo Samuel into the Niners offense, so I'm going to roll with him over Jones.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with you. I mean, they still really like Barber enough. And by the way, the question you said, Ronald F. and Jones. So if you're using an adjective to describe one of your choices, that's a swear word. Maybe that's the guy you don't want to see.
Don't start him.
Yeah,
it wasn't Deebo effing Samuel.
Yeah, it was Deebo Samuel.
But I will say this. I think that people who drafted, maybe this is a dynasty thing, but people who drafted Ronald Jones are certainly more disappointed in him given what they sunk into him than what you probably sunk into Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, that's true. Although Jones, he's still coming around. I mean, he could emerge as a player. I mean,
he's another guy I'd love to trade in the Blake Harrington Dynasty League if anybody's
well, he had a good game like 2 weeks ago, right? And then
yeah, he did.
You should have dealt him then.
What?
I think I fake offered you a second, but I didn't have a second.
Listen, this is what I'm talking about, why I'm terrible at Dynasty, is because I wait for these games to happen, then they happen, I'm like, oh, no, here we go. Start a big run. Yeah, it's terrible. All right, that's going to do it for our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank our guest tonight, Micah Bailey, second place in the FFPC main event. Good luck to him the rest of the way. Also want to invite you to check out RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown this past week. Thursday it came out. the Billy Metcalf episode. You can get that at rotoviz.com/podcast, also on Apple Podcasts as well. As Dave just pointed out, get those Carolina Panthers, get those Tampa Bay Buccaneers in or out of your lineup prior to 9:30 a.m. on Sunday, since you have the big kickoff from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, or whatever they call it, over in London. So get those guys in or out. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Hopefully the balls bounce your way in Week 6. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. That was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
We're on the cement floor, even more so if we on tour. Me and E explore the country, wondering about the evening before. Trying to explain where the time went, while other rappers find a studio to grind in.
Well, your hip made it through. How are you feeling?
I feel all right. I'm a little bit nauseous, but I'm all right.
Are you more or less nauseous than when the show started?
More.
Yeah.
Listening to
all right.
you
Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop it right now. No more. No more listening to Bulky.
I'm gonna puke.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Go throw up now.